now. Otherwise, I guess we would have heard Danny's intro forever and onward for our recording. So we'll start recording now, and I'm gonna turn it over to you, Tom, and I'm gonna put myself on mute. But I would assume he'll give you the rules of engagement on whether you want to ask questions to him and his team personally or use the chat, and I'll let him take control.
Sure. Yeah. So to answer that question, I would love for this to be a conversation, a dialogue. Brad's going to be giving a demo, and so yeah, if you've got any questions, let's go ahead and turn this into an interactive conversation. So today's topic. We're going to be going through the latest iteration of the GP Strategies common HTML5 framework. Now, there's been a lot of effort around building HTML5 frameworks in GP Strategies. There's been a few different organizations working on their own flavors of HTML5 frameworks, and even inside of the content development group here at 1010, there have been a couple of different development frameworks. And one of the things that we're trying to do is create a common architecture and a common, I guess, language for communicating with our clients about this. But if I go even to a higher level, why build a GP Strategies HTML5 framework when there's a number of frameworks out there? There's the Evolve framework, there's the Adapt framework, there's a couple of commercial tools. Gomo comes to mind as one of them. And the bigger players on the block, Adobe and Articulate, they're also coming out with what I would call acceptable HTML5 frameworks at this point. They were doing HTML light for a while there, and it was quite painful. The reason that GP Strategies started down the road of building HTML5 frameworks, and the reason that we continue, is that we've got a fair number of clients who absolutely cannot have their content in the cloud. In addition to that, there are some HTML5 frameworks out there that are built for learning that we could use, but they use older versions of frameworks. And so the ability to modify and add all of those weird situational interactive requirements become difficult for us. So about 2 years ago, I want to say, it made the most sense for GP Strategies to start to build our own framework. We learned a lot during that first framework implementation. So we'll just call it the V1.0 framework. It was Angular 1 shell. And, Brad and Kurt and a number of team members built a lot of functionality into it. But it was heavily developer-centric. That is, each new client implementation required that a developer get in there, build out the initial shell. We had a limited group of folks that really could get in there and build it and customize it. And one of the things that we found, and this was probably the biggest challenge, is that depending on the experience and background of the developer, they would hack the framework in a way that made it very specific to that client. So looking at a version 2 version of this framework, and the framework that Brad is going to show today and that Chris is going to talk about today, we created not only a newer, more modern framework using Vue.js, but also a new approach. Okay, so it's again going to be a GP-owned solution hosted in a trusted GP Strategies secure environment that we've already had vetted and validated for our clients, our most discerning clients, we'll call them, like PNC and HSBC. But it's also a modern approach to UX design for the learner, but also for the developer. Developing an approach where content developers or instructional designers can get in and define the layout of the content, create connections from page to page, use templates over and again, without having to be a programmer. And some of the more modern things that we're approaching are ease of use for creating translations, and accessible design, and of course that visual online design. We wanted to make this as transparent as possible. So Chris Skis, who I'll turn this over to, was, very graciously accepted the responsibility of community management and community ownership. Brad Washburn has taken the helm as chief architect. Max Glick is working on acquiring an area where we can centralize our development operations and other GP strategies collaborators can easily gain access to. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Chris, who can describe the current version of this framework and how the HTML5 framework community is working. And even Chris, if you want, recruit today. So Chris, I'll go ahead and turn things over to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Tom. And yeah, that's a pretty good intro there. And so as Brad was rebuilding originally the Cigna compliance interface in the updated Angular framework, we put together a team to support him and roll that out. So that's our HTML5 framework team. Here's the link to our SharePoint if you want to check that out. We keep that updated. And yeah, we meet a couple times a month just to look at how we can best support the existing frameworks we have out there. And then also for about 6 months now, we've been working on an updated version of the framework. And so I just want to show that original one for anyone who might not be familiar with it, just to see kind of the progression. So we originally developed this framework for Cigna, and then since then we've been able to roll it out to a couple other clients, including Lilly, and HSBC is also using this framework. So if you can see my screen, you can see it's a very clean, this is kind of the standardized launch page with the tiles.
Not yet, looks like it's loading.
Okay. So once we got that up and running, we kind of learned quite a bit from that initial rollout. And as Tom was alluding to, it was very kind of developer centric. We were having, the biggest pain point we were having was that all content edits and all content revisions, everything that needed to be changed really had to go through media or engineering. So we were getting kind of a roadblock there later in the development cycle when we were trying to make pretty simple changes, but we needed more advanced developers to go in and make those changes and then build out a new version of the framework. So we kind of looked at that and made some changes for what we wanted to do with a newer framework. And the main idea there that Brad's been working on is to have in-browser content editing. So what that does, once we get an initial build, it enables anyone with a browser to go in and modify content, make simple changes like adding and removing content, but also do some basic formatting like bolding and underlining right there in the browser. So they don't have to download any special JavaScript applications. They don't have to have a more advanced source editor. They don't have to get into a terminal command and run commands. They can just go in and make those changes. So our hope is that that's really going to streamline kind of the middle to end of development process and really let each team member focus on what they're good at. So let the engineers focus on, building out the initial interfaces, letting media focus on visual design, and then letting content developers really focus on, owning the content and making those kinds of content changes. So along with the tiles, kind of like a panel layout here. It's very flexible, very responsive. So we had a lot of good success with this, but we wanted to expand on it, and so that's what we've been doing. So Brad will kind of walk us through that here in just a second. So the idea with this newer framework, though, is to develop something flexible that then account leads can go and take out and create a master interface or master framework for each account based on those needs. So Brad is kind of building the tool set that each account needs to create their version, but then it's going to be kind of up to them to decide what they need, and with engineering and our team support, get them to a place where they can have something that works for their account. So we're kind of just getting to piloting that with an account now, and so we're really going to start rolling this out probably in the next 6 months or so. It'll be ready to actually begin using. So Brad will go through all the features and kind of take a look at the actual framework. And one other thing I wanted to add is a big synergy with these frameworks, both the Angular and the new Vue framework, is that they both work really well with version control systems and servers. So right now we're kind of in a sandbox environment on GitHub and developing locally. We've done a little bit with Subversion and Cigna, where we have a centralized repository where we're saving files. But as we move forward, and as an organization, we have a scalable version control system that we can use. It's going to really streamline our development process. It's going to allow like a better process for checking in and out files, keeping track of updates and changes. And so these frameworks work really well with that. So I think there's going to be a lot of advantages to our development process there. So with that, Brad, I'll kind of let you go ahead and walk through the Vue framework you've been working on, and then I'll answer any questions once you're done.
Hello, everyone. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Got it.
Okay. So this is kind of the start screen with kind of a default skin with no content. And we have over here, we have this little kind of editing bar, which allows you to edit content. And we have this course settings button. And if we press this, we actually get a new tab here in the browser. And this allows us to build out the structure of our course. So right now we have an entry point, a start page. And so we can easily go and we can lay out a page. And something real quick to notice here is there's a notion of pages, which has to do with like your address in the address bar. And then you have your content, which is what gets loaded in. And so you'll notice that we have right here a page 1 here, which is an address location. And then we're giving it the content of page 1. We could go and give it the same content as the start page if we wanted to. So that provides an extra level of flexibility, especially let's say you get to a point where you need to be moving pages around without having to break the structure. You can really quickly go and swap what content is being loaded in. But anyway, we can, let's build a few pages here. So we don't really have any connection here. There's no really relationship between these pages. But that is easily solved. We can say, okay, from this entry point, we want to be able to go to page 1, and we want page 1 to be able to go to page 2, and we want page 2 to be able to go to page 3, and page 3 to go to page 4. But not only that, at the entry point, we want to have like a menu system, and we want page 1 and page 2 to be a chapter, and page 3 and page 4 to be a chapter. So we can have another entry point here. So as you can see, this is super flexible for any sort of branching you'd want to do. And then we have ability to create groups. And the reason we're using groups instead of the notion of chapters is because it's just a flexible idea to group things together so they can be used in all sorts of ways, which I'll be showing you. But for right now, let's create a new group. And we will call this, I guess, chapter 1. That works. And we can select, actually, you know what? We'll have this first group and we'll call it home, and we'll just give it the our starting page, and then we'll create another group, and this will be chapter 1, and we'll give it these pages. Notice when I have the group selected, I can just select what pages I want in that. So let's say if I go to home, you'll notice entry point is selected. I go back to chapter 1. We have page 1 and 2 selected. Let's make a third chapter, chapter 2, and just a quick aside. Notice how these are coming up initially with chapter 1, chapter 2. It's totally possible in this framework when you're setting up the framework for a specific client to change what the default name that comes in, even the default content that comes in on a page that you build. So there's a lot of flexibility there as well. So let's go here, create chapter 1, chapter 2. Now another thing is each of these lines is a connection, which represents a transition between pages. And so if we select one, you'll notice that we have transitions. So this means when you're moving forward, going this way along the line, we'll get a slide forward. And if you hit the back button, you get a slide back. On top of that, we can also do gating. If you hold shift down, you automatically get a little thing that represents that there's a gate. So in order to do this path, if we hover over here, we notice the entry point highlights. That means the entry point needs to be completed before it will allow you to do this connection. On top of that, if we wanted to have more complex gating, we can go over here, and instead of just having it the page that comes before, which is the default that it sets up, we can choose any page to be completed in order for it to go, or we can choose a whole group needs to be completed before that gate is released. So in frameworks that we've had up until now, we've had gating either on or off for the whole course, and this allows us to compose gating in a very specific manner, which actually lines up with requests we get from clients all the time, where they want just the assessment gated or just this content gated, and this we want the user to be able to go through in any order they want or not complete it. We can accomplish that now without any issue with this kind of new flexible system. Okay, so let's save this and see what we got in the actual framework. You'll notice that it's reloading here. All right, so if we look at the menu here, we'll notice now the menu, we have this set up to look for any group and make it like a chapter. So we'll notice we have home and chapter 1. We can go to chapter 1 right here. Obviously, there's no content in here. Let me, real quick, I don't want to overwhelm you guys with code, but let me put in a little bit of content there real quick. That will. Okay, sorry. Instead of digging into that, let's go back here. I can show you some of the other stuff we got going on here. So you notice this panel that we have in here. This allows you, so for any textual content, you can make it editable in the browser. And this is only when it's in development mode. Once you publish it, then all the content is not editable. So while we're developing the course, all this is editable, and we can have tools to do stuff. So So we can easily just make content in the browser and hit save, and then it saves it. If we leave and go somewhere else, and we come back, you'll notice that the text is here because it's actually been written to the file. We go back to the control panel. We have a couple tabs up top. This is what I'm working on right now, so there's nothing here. But this is going to be a place where you can create questions for knowledge checks. You can create pools where you can pool them and stuff like that to have a really robust and flexible question engine. And right here, the publish, you'll notice that here's the default title of the course. And then we have what the default language is and what sort of wrapper it's going to go in. And currently, we don't have the LMS connectivity built, but you can kind of see how you would select how you'd want to publish it out. And then over here, we go down here, we have English right here. We open this up, we have a title. And since other, we went to Spanish, you could give that a Spanish title. And then also, this is where you can do fonts. So you could choose a second font and add a second font if you wanted. The first font, it becomes the default font that gets kind of as a default applied to the whole course. But if you needed a second font, you could put that in there. And we'll be building tooling where for specific text you can select a different font. But another thing about this is why this is in the actual language is so we can actually use different fonts for different languages. In the past, doing localization, a common thing was to choose a font that had a whole bunch of languages like Arial, but then you're giving away a lot in the realm of design because you're going with kind of a generic font that can be rendered in a whole lot of places. This gives us the ability to have language-specific fonts if we so choose. And then what you do, let's say we wanted to add Spanish, we could go here, or we could check Spanish, and we could hit Generate. And now it's basically copied all the course files into a separate folder inside the project, and then you can have those pages sent out to be localized. Another thing you can do is if you hit this compile together, when you actually publish your course, it'll publish both languages in the same course, which will allow you to have like a widget where you can switch between languages. So a great example of this would be needs that Canada has to publish in both English and French. That can be all wrapped into a single course very easily. Or you can have a course where you don't have compiled together and you have multiple languages and they all compile separately for separate deliverables. Does anyone have any questions?
Brad, I was just going to comment on this translation. We've done extensive translation with the current Angular framework for Cigna. We've translated the entire suite of compliance courses into about 8 or 9 different languages. So we can definitely do that with our existing framework. But this updated version 2 framework, I think, is going to give us a lot more robust support and more options for publishing, like you've said here. So I think this is going to be a big step forward for kind of our global clients that are translating into multiple languages.
Yeah, and it comes in with built-in organizational support instead of trying. I know we've had some issues in the past getting the proper folder structure and getting people to adhere to that with translations and stuff. This way, it's built right in, and everything stays nice and organized.
Somewhere else where we're going to be able to see some benefit is that not only are we going to be able to translate, but the designers or content developers are going to be able to make decisions about the layout right inside of the interface. So it's not just mapping language to language, but it's also mapping language to layout.
Yeah. So let me show you something I built with kind of an earlier version of this framework that might be let me give me a second here there we go. Okay, let me spin up this other project real quick. And so it can give you an idea of how different these basically using the same architecture these courses can look. Just need to wait for the server to spin up here. Thanks for your patience. There we go.
So I will add a little plug here for our team. We are kind of getting to the point where we're ready to transition from building this out and actually getting to piloting it. So we have a couple accounts that may be interested. So if you have an account that might be interested, or more particularly, if you're interested in working with us on this or contributing or have questions and just want to drop into our meetings, please let me know. This is Chris Skis again. You can just send me an email or something. I'd be happy to forward our meeting invite to you, and you can drop in and figure out and find out what we're doing anytime.
Chris, this is Tim. Quick question on that one. Does it mean, are you saying that we would get clients access to this tool and they would kind of convert on their own Flash to HTML5 using this tool, or what's the context on with the clients there?
So right now we're working with basically our media leads on different accounts, and what would happen is that the media lead would work with our engineering team and build out a framework or an interface for a particular client. So not necessarily we're going to hand the client this technology, but we're going to partner with them and we're going to put a team together that can figure out what they need from this kind of framework and then build something out that will fit with their design requirements.
Right. It's kind of get the layout, the corporate identity nailed, but we would be the folks kind of getting the content of the HTML5 of the Flash into this then, right? The conversion, we would be doing that, right?
Yes, that's right. And this could be definitely a step forward for that. It'd be a great option for clients who are looking to convert from Flash to HTML5.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So this course here, we have a menu, and one thing you'll notice is that we have not only your different chapters, but pages as well. So you can actually build things out, like all the data is right there. So in the course, so it makes it really easy to build these dynamic menus or whatever and create whatever experience you want. If you wanted to create like a course that had an accordion menu on the side or something, that would be possible. We're not stuck with just one thing. This is a toolkit to build a template for a client to their specs. And then, but under the hood, everything is going to operate the same way. And so you can have, cross-team support. So, so if a particular account is really busy, someone else can hop on and they'll have the same tools. It'll just be, the course will just look different. So if we go and we look at the, what this course looks like, you'll notice we have our entry point, we have our different chapters, and they're all connected up. One thing that I thought might be fun to show you guys is you can select colors, and then let's say I go and I select a chapter. I can give that a color, or I can just give an individual one a color if I wanted to. So as things, if you're building something that get complicated, you can organize by color in here as well. But this is just to give you an idea of, what a course might actually look like, laid out here. And so
just pausing on that for a minute. So as some of you are thinking about how we might be able to leverage its framework, we can think beyond straightforward course design. As you can see, the ability to connect multiple pages. I keep wanting to call them cards, but it keeps reminding me of HyperCard, if anybody can think back that far. But as you can imagine, you can start laying out really complex schemas here. I can envision easily a scenario-based layout that's kind of a choose-your-own-adventure style of course path progression. And so for maybe a little bit more of a modern reference, anybody who's seen the Netflix series Black Mirror, they recently had a Bandersnatch release, and in that release you're able to kind of choose destinations or choose lines of response. So we can potentially add a lot of gamified approaches here. And because GP Strategies owns this framework, if we were to go back to Brad and say, hey, we really want to take this gamified approach, we want to add maybe some background score tracking and things like that, it's something that can absolutely be built in.
Yep, and there's structures in place where that should be very easy to do. And just to go a little bit further with what Tom was saying, like a really common request we get from clients is we want a course that has, role-based content. So we just want a single course, but when you come here and you're a manager, we want you to get this content, but not this content. And, if you're a line worker, you get this content and not this content, but everyone gets this content. That'll be very easy to do with this system right here. And whatever, the scenario is that the client has, we don't have to force them down what we're able to do with our framework, a narrow lane of functionality that we have built out. Instead, we can give them exactly what they're asking for. So another cool thing about this is this had, like, when we're talking about additions for this, every chapter is given a color, and certain things are automatically colored. And then you'll notice that this next button, it automatically generates the name of the next page. So if we go here, we're on this page. Here, let me zoom in a bit here. Okay, we have how to use this, and then the next one is business alignment. So we can go to business alignment. And you'll notice also a built-in functionality where you can take that core color and you can either make it lighter or darker. So you can very easily get a color scheme. And as you move through, you'll notice the color scheme stays the same. And we have a background image for this chapter. But then when we get to the end of the chapter someday, there we go. We have a nice transition to the new background at a crossfade. And then we have a new color. And so I didn't have to pick all these colors, there's just, built out a function that I'm able to inject into every page, and then it goes and it figures out what chapters it's on and provides the proper color. And so actually we can go back here real quick. What is it? So, we have like accordions. So like you can have interactions that you can build, and then you can even, set the colors for those. So it's very flexible, what you want it to look like. And the goal is to be able to really provide a really custom experience for every client. I think that is all I have to show.
So, any questions from the team out there? To reiterate what Chris was saying earlier, we're very interested in this being a shared development environment, a shared framework. We'd very much like to get support, programming support, design support, input from the greater GP Strategies ecosystem. Would love to have some of the folks on the India team also jumping in and supporting this framework and building out new functions. One of the things that Max Glick is currently working on with Brad, as I had mentioned, is placing this into a GP managed content repository. So we're currently investigating moving this over into DevOps. I can't say that that's exactly where it's initially going to live, but we are able to manage multiple content repos, and so there's a good chance that we'll move things into DevOps, and Brad is currently working with Max on that, as I said. If there is anyone on your teams that you'd like to get involved with development, please have them reach out to Chris Skis, and we'd be happy to have them join the regularly scheduled meetings and participate in the vision for the roadmap.
Tom, this is Tim. Is there anyone of Andy Wright's team in the UK already involved in this?
Chris, is anyone from Andy Wright's or maybe Tim Brin's group in here?
Not that I know of, although I don't know everyone on his team, so there could be someone. But,
okay.
I think with the HSBC account, there may be some crossover there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Tim,
Yeah.
if maybe you want to assist with ginning up some conversation between Andy's, Tim's, and Tim's, Andy's team, Tim's team, and Chris, that'd be fantastically helpful.
Yeah.
I see that Brenda's on the call. Same thing, Brenda. If there's a a certain point of contact, or I see Raj is on here as well. Raj, there's someone on the team who would be good as a point of contact for working with Chennai. Would love to have them collaborate.
Sure. Yeah. I have a question here, Tom. I'm not sure whether it's for you or for Brad. I'm just wondering, what was the output format? Is it going to be an HTML or a SCOM out of this tool so far?
I'll let Brad answer it, but I think it's yes and yes.
Could you repeat that one more time?
The question, Brad, is what is the output? HTML, SCORM. So I was just saying I think the answer is yes and yes. But what are the output options that you have in your vision and your roadmap?
We're looking to do obviously a non-wrapped course, just that could be put up as a website somewhere, kind of like this one is, as well as wrapping for SCORM 1.2, 2004 version 3, and 2004 version 4, AICC, and XAPI.
Got it.
And hopefully this will be in a way where if there's other things that are needed in the future, we could add those as well. This is definitely something that's extensible.
Right. I have one more question. I earlier listened that it was being useful for Flash to HTML5 conversion, right? As a next step to Flash to HTML5 conversion, correct? So how we envision that? Is there anything already built in as a step one, or we are actually planning for it?
I mean, I think when you're talking about Flash to HTML5 conversion, like there's some tools out there that supposedly do that. Google used to have Swiffy and stuff like that, but what we found is that it's not a super reliable solution. And I think what we've been recommending to clients is like, you need to rebuild this content now, and we can take the content from your Flash and rebuild it. And so ultimately, what we'd be doing is just pulling assets out and content and rebuilding it. So this would allow us to, mimic the structure of whatever the Flash course was, but you're still kind of building stuff from scratch. And the hope would be that we'd have enough, a stable of enough interactions and stuff like that where we could provide a similar experience.
Got it. I'm just wondering, what was the strategy around it?
Yeah, like we don't have like a nice slick Flash conversion tool that takes Flash and then throws it into this framework, unfortunately.
No, you're reliable. I mean, like whatever you've said, like Google or whoever has got this Flash HTML5 conversion so far was not 100% reliable. They have very little to do, and you cannot edit anything around it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
And then Raj, to answer the other part of your question, and as Brad had noted in the I think had noted in the text here, we are considering accessibility and building in a framework for handling that accessibility, whether it is object or media tagging or captioning or visual or media player management, those types of things. So accessibility is being considered, and Iggy's team is very involved in the accessibility community, and so those conversations will involve them and anyone who is interested as well.
Got it. One more thing I have as a question, sorry. There was this translation object, which component we have inside of this tool. Is it using any Google or any other translation services, or we have our own translation services built in?
So yeah, the tool itself doesn't actually do translation. We've built stuff before that's used like Microsoft Bing Translator, and I know like if you have an account, you can use Google Translate to translate things on the fly, and we could potentially look to integrate something like that for a client. But we're looking at the solution that we're providing here is basically the ability just to copy the content and then you send it out to an external vendor to translate, and you get the source back and you throw it in, and then you can publish either language or both together.
Got it, got it. Because I was just wondering, when you do services using translation services using Microsoft or Google, someone has to actually go ahead and validate, make sure that content has been proof edited, right? So
Yeah,
that's
and yeah, when you do that stuff, oftentimes too, like at least when we've done that before, we've done that as translation on the fly in the course, and so there's no validation that it can actually happen. So um, it's actually kind of a problematic solution that way, just as you mentioned.
okay. Great. Great. That's all I have from my end. I can, as you said, like as Tom mentioned, like we can collaborate and we can take this to the next level. We are happy to do that, and we will set up a one-to-one meeting, between us, and we can contribute to each other.
That'd
Wonderful.
be fantastic. Would love to have some of your team on that, and Chris can coordinate that with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Well, like Chris mentioned, we are looking for opportunities to also build out this framework for client implementation. So if in your travels, in your communications with your regional account managers, you come up against an opportunity, we'd be happy to start those conversations early. So I'd like to thank Chris and Brad for presenting here today. Really happy with the direction that this framework has taken and the really rapid maturity that it's enjoyed in its short development life cycle. Like I was saying, we will communicate out as this framework becomes accessible from within GP Strategy's internal framework management tools. And yeah, we're looking forward to working with the larger global community. So thanks a lot today, everybody. I think that is it, unless, Dawn, there's anything else we needed to cover?
Nope, I think I'm good. Thanks for coming and sharing.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Don, can you share the recordings in Yammer or something so we can take it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll post somewhere and share the link out as a reply all.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.